Hey everyone, it's Dawn, aka Professor D, and I'm here with Team JWALK, our winner of Most Complete Project to use API and open source. We are gonna give you guys an awesome overview of the project itself. You're gonna have a chance to talk with the team as well. Okay, you won't have a chance to talk with the team. I'll have a chance to talk with the team. And we're just gonna learn a little bit more about the project, what's next, what the features are, how they came together, and how you can follow the project. So without further ado, let's say hello to Team JWalk. And what I'll do is have you guys just introduce yourselves very quickly. Just let us know sort of like how you guys came together. Tell us a little bit about the project, and then we'll go through the walkthrough. And I'll probably ask you this another time again as well. So let's start with Hope.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Hope Han. I'm a UX designer who works in New York City. In terms of how we got together as a team, I think we just all sat at the same table and then ended up starting talking. So not any we didn't know each other before. We just showed up and ended up forming a team.
Awesome. And how about you, Brunel?
Yeah, my name is Brunel. I work with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, an area director overseeing some campus ministries there. I found out about this boot camp from my brother-in-law, who's a software developer. And he, I told him that I was interested in getting into tech and looking to get into a boot camp. And so he's been kind of passing along a couple of things to me here and there. So this is the first one that I've actually been able to go to. It was in New York City. So it's my first hackathon. And like Hope said, we kind of was sitting at the same table and we're like, well, we're here, so let's make it happen. So that's kind of how we got connected and worked together.
And then how about you, Aliyah?
Sorry for the noise. Can you hear me? I'm Aliyah-Simone. Wow. Sorry. Just can't let you be great. Hi,
I'm life.
Right. Hi, I'm Aliyah-Simone. Aliyah's fine. I'm a teacher, so I work with children, but outside of that, I'm very dedicated to my faith community. So at my church, you can always find me in the booth, serving as your local media girl. All things tech is what I go by at my church. All things tech, Aliyah-Simone. And when I found about the hackathon because I'm an Alliance University student, and I saw posters around the school, but I also received the email. And one of the questions that stood out to me was how to integrate faith and media to produce church growth. And that's something that I'm always frequently talking about. So that kind of drew my attention. It was my first hackathon, and like Hope and Brunel both shared, it was, I mean, I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in like divine intervention. And we all ended up just coming together at a table, talking about things in general. And then we realized that we all had kind of the same vision, the same focus that we wanted to see done throughout the community. And from there, we just decided to come up with JWALK.
Awesome. And if I remember correctly, you guys had a Bible verse that inspired you, or I think it was initially named. Do you guys remember what that is? Or yeah, okay, great. You want to just
I don't remember who pointed it out, but somebody from our team pointed it out. Which one of you guys pointed it out? I'll let y'all share.
I think it was me, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I think it was me, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I was kind of casting vision because the way that it came about was like my wife and I during the pandemic, we were talking about what does it mean to like love our neighbors. We've been doing ministry miles away from home, and now that we're kind of quarantined at home, it's like, what does it look like to actually love your neighbors, live in a building where we didn't know our neighbors, been living there for a while. And so I felt like the Lord was calling us to actually get to know our neighbors. And what happened was we found out that there were several people in our actual building. Sorry about that. New York City people. We found out that there were several followers of Christ in our building. And we were able to find community. And we wouldn't have known of one another if we weren't intentional. And so we're talking about like, what does it look like to be invested in your own community? And I think that's where Aliyah the verse came to her about, I think, Jeremiah 29. So I'll let you share a little bit more, Leah, about why that verse kind of connected with you along those lines.
It kind of connected with me because basically it says, but seek the welfare of the city, where I have sent you into exile. I like the Messenger Bible version better. But long story short, the reason why it resonated with me is because I believe like where we all are, where we all placed are, is not by coincidence, not by choice. Like, yes, we choose to live here, but at the same time, there's a reason why we stay here and we feel led to remain in the place we are because we're called to the area that we're in, we're called to serve it. And I just felt like we're called to do more than just live in an area. Like, we can't protect our community, we can't respect our community, we can't acknowledge it unless we first connect with it. And when you connect with it, then you help realize what resources are missing, what things are needed. And from there, you build up the wealth of the city by first acknowledging the issues and getting to know the people around. So that's why it spoke to me. And I also brought up the other scripture in 1 Thessalonians when Paul instructs the church, to know those that labor among them. Like, it's important to go outside of the four walls, as church people say, like go outside of those four walls and also connect with community, because that's where real outreach and ministry happens, like through evangelism, with connecting with the people, on the corner, on the store. Like, they're people just like us. We shouldn't just focus on the people inside.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hope, did you have anything you want to share about sort of what inspired you or even about this verse?
Yeah, I think basically just building off of what's already been said, I think the prompt you were trying to answer was like, how do you connect with your communities, or, how can we foster that connection? And I realized that, it was a local prompt, which I felt like definitely fit into this theme of New York, of not knowing who your neighbors are. And then, I think we're always thinking about, okay, where's the next neighborhood we're going to be in? Or, oh, New York is a transient place, I'm just going to be here for a hot second. But then I think what really spoke to me when we were talking about this verse is like this context of Jeremiah, where they are exiles. They're in a temporary place, but they're still called to pray for the city that they're temporarily in, and also seek its welfare. So even though we are kind of, we're not in our forever home of the kingdom, it's not here yet, but this idea of like, I've also had these thoughts like, oh, I'm only going to be in this neighborhood short term, or I'm going to probably move again. But kind of getting out of that and thinking, no, like, what can I do now? Like, how am I praying for where I am placed now? I think really spoke to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny, you all talking about sort of like typical New York, right? We're hearing the noise in the background, and you're thinking, hey, I'm not going to stay in this neighborhood, or I will, or maybe not even the city. And I think when I saw that this was sort of what inspired you, it actually kind of convicted me a little bit. I'm not going to talk too much, so I want you guys to have time to do the demo. But it actually convicted me because I'm born and raised in New York City, very long time. Many people in the city, I would say, if you're here for like 3 years or more, then consider yourself a native. That's just how it goes these days. And yeah, I've definitely had times where I said, why am I here, Lord? Or, after seeing so much, you just kind of think maybe the grass is greener on the other side, maybe moving to this other city, or, like Austin or Atlanta, or moving across seas. And, in my travels, what I've realized is it's like the problems are problems everywhere. We're called to serve where we are. And that could be really challenging, right? Like, it could be really challenging for all of us. So I love this idea of, you guys coming off an app that helps people connect with each other and during the prayer walks. And I'll just say this before I let you guys dive into the walkthrough. The judges who were, working with us are all in industry. One's a software engineer and also works for a large corporation. I won't name names for now, but the other one is worked for nothing but Fortune 500 companies. He's also a serial entrepreneur. And then another person is an IT tech with FedEx. So, they've seen their fair share of apps and techs, and we've all got excited about things. I've tons of experience with startups. And this really spoke to me. And I think it was really exciting to see something come out of a project. Both projects actually were, you guys were, most of you at least, were new to hackathons. I think new to hack. And in such a short time, right? 24 hours, a little bit over that, have something, as Joel said, on screen. And it's exciting to see what can happen when we not just come together, but we're coming together and we're just kind of letting God lead us. And then we're, learning how to work with strangers, which is always challenging, even as Christians, like, you got to figure it out, and it can be a little awkward. So I was super excited, and everyone was really impressed with just the presentation, and the thought process behind it. So I'd love if you guys would just take a few minutes to just walk us through the application. Tell us, what you think are some of the pain points. What do you guys think is the next step, and how can we stay in touch? People who are following it, how can they stay in touch, or even possibly contribute to helping you build the project? Just let us know what's next. So I'm going to mute myself out, and then Hope and team, feel free to walk us through, and then we'll come back after that.
Yeah, maybe since I'm in control of the screen share, I can kind of do a quick walkthrough, but then Brunel and Aliyah, please feel free to interject if something comes up that I missed. So kind of what we were looking to do is connecting people to their community, but also we had a lot of ideas about, how best to do that. And I think one of the stories, I think it was actually Brunel, a story that you shared, which was about when you're thinking about where to plant a church, and this is kind of where it came tied into church planting. I think it was planting a college ministry. You first did a prayer walk to get to know that area. And so we were like, oh, that's also a great way to connect with your neighborhood. And so kind of as we alluded to before, there's a lot of people in New York who don't know their neighbors. And, one of our biggest commandments was, to love your neighbor. And, how can you do that if you don't even know who you're living next to? So we kind of took on this challenge of how do we connect people to their local community, specifically through prayer and service. So, just to go through a little bit of a walkthrough, maybe we have Elena and Bruno. So Elena, she's new to New York, she's new to the neighborhood, she wants to meet other people, but also get to know, the city that she's been placed in, as well as what's around. And then Bruno has, he's a neighborhood OG. He's been there for, most of his life maybe, and is an unofficial local historian as he's seen the neighborhood change through a lot of different kinds of things. And so he has a really rich knowledge of the neighborhood and its community. So, kind of we have these two characters, and how they might get in touch with each other is, let's say, so Elena, she's new to the city. She hears about this app called JWALK, and she makes an account. She enters her zip code, so it's tailored to her local neighborhood. And then when she goes into the app, she sees a couple different landmarks around her. We were very inspired by Pokemon Go, or other types of communal neighborhood and walking apps. So here Elena is able to see specifically maybe some landmarks that Bruno put in. So we see here the Grove Street station with a note from him about the history of how it came about, etc. And then, from here, she can get connected and see, oh, who is this user, Bruno Byrne, and then see, his upcoming walks. Maybe even, these are public, so it could be something she could join in as well. And then really start to get to know her community, whether that's solo, walking on these prayer walks and making her own path, or getting connected with other fellow Christians in her neighborhood to really pray for the community. So we did also get some helpful initial data from Helpful. We were able to put our Figma prototype onto the site, and also got a walkthrough. Overall, they rated us 4 out of 5 stars, which is pretty good for a first run through. So that was also very helpful for us to really guide that first iterations. And just to go through kind of the live demo. So we have our app here where you enter, sign in, enter your information. And then, from here, you can really see the different landmarks that we showed before. We even might be able to see, for those landmarks, maybe they have places that you'd like to pray for. So maybe for this church specifically, they're having a VBS starting soon, or maybe they're having some unhoused outreach that, you could join in on as well. So this was another layer of trying to connect people to their local community. From there, maybe you're ready to go on your local walk. This maybe is what Bruno set up, because he's kind of the OG historian of the of his community. So he set up this walk that now Elena can take. So that's kind of a quick walkthrough of what the app would look like. There's, of course, like a lot of ways we would like to grow in terms of other ways to connect people and other ways we could take the app, probably leveraging existing Google Maps APIs and things like that. I already know there's a lot of functionality built in there, so this could be like a good first step to take that. But yeah, I guess Brunel and Aliyah, did I miss anything? And are there other like future steps that you can kind of see this app taking?
Yeah. So like Hope just kind of demonstrated, one of the main things that we're thinking about is how do people connect. I'm also a young adult pastor at my church, and every September we get tons of young adults that move into the city either for work or for school. And one of the main things that they're asking is like, how do I connect to Christian community? That's one thing for them to go to churches, and a lot of churches in New York City are kind of like bigger, kind of mega churches. And one of the things that they've constantly said is that it's really hard to find community. People in New York are very busy. And one of the things that's a factor for people in determining if they're going to connect with people is convenience to a certain extent. So if they can find people that live closer to them, like what would it look like if they're actually able to connect and start community right there? But we also realize what the implications could be in terms of having an app like this. So, for example, when Facebook was created, it was mainly for college students to connect. And now Facebook is a place where Facebook had mobilized people to do certain things, campaigns and other things. And we see how social media has been leveraged and used to help do more things beyond just connecting. I think it starts with people connecting, and then when they're able to connect and communicate, there are other possibilities. So we're just curious and wondering, what would it look like if there were communities that were connecting well with this app? And as they're doing these prayer walks, they're identifying areas that God is calling them to care for. Now, while the app itself doesn't necessarily encourage that, but we're thinking about the implications and the possibilities of what can happen when people are able to connect and pray together, how the Holy Spirit could actually help them identify some areas that they could renew, and how that would cause neighborhoods and communities to flourish as a result, and how that would actually empower Christian witness, right? That people are able to beautify their own communities and their neighborhoods. And so those are one of the implications. Now it's not explicit in how we're, speaking about the app, because that might just be overwhelming, but it's one of the things that we're hoping for that might come out of that.
And just to add to that, also like the thought behind like speaking from experience, I go to a traditional Baptist church where sometimes our definition of community outreach is different from what it actually should be. Like for my church, not to put them on the spot, sometimes we forget to go back and follow up. So sometimes we will have like a little outreach party because it's October and we're gonna have Oktoberfest, but then we forget, okay, what about November? We lose a population, you know what I'm saying? You lose a population of people. So something like this will help us build some sort of consistency where there's always something happening for the community. There's always some type of like collaboration. There's always some type of just outreach going on always. Also, it's just another way of evangelizing. Well, that's like the way my church says it, but it's also evangelizing. Evangelism is basically reaching neighbors, friends, neighbors, associates through Christ. It helps us build connections with them without forcing church on them. So it's not, hey, you want to come to church with me because etc. It's more so, who are you? How are you? What can I offer you? What kind of supports can I offer you? Things of that nature, if that makes sense. Because sometimes, some people miss the first step of just building connection. They just want to jump to saying, hey, come to my church. We're having a concert on Friday. We're having Bible study. Some people need something before that so that they can feel comfortable, especially not knowing what experience they already have with church.
Yeah, I would say that's a really great point, especially about like the step before come to the concert, come to XYZ. Sometimes, we kind of think that's the thing that's going to bring people in, and it can. But I love the fact that you guys are really emphasizing connection in different ways. what's interesting to me, about your project is that, both your project and Ecclesia Seed, so both your teams won in their categories, are really trying to facilitate connections, and I would say deeper connections too, right? And in some ways also, you have this sort of gamification, right? Like you guys talking about being inspired, like Pokemon Go. Ecclesia Seed is talking about other things that influence them, and those are all good things. So one of the questions I have for you all is, have you considered who your target audience is? This is kind of wide, we're talking about all New Yorkers, but if you were to put this in the hands of someone in your circle, who would that be? Would it be a family member? Would it be a particular friend you're thinking of? Is it, the person at work who, at lunch, they kind of overhear you talking about something or playing music? You're kind of having these dialogues, but they're not quite connecting, right? You're not really full into like, this is what you need to do. So like, who would be the first person, I want each of you to answer this, that you put this app in terms of putting it in their hands? Who comes to mind immediately?
I don't think we discussed this, so we might not be necessarily on the same page, but I'm curious to hear what my other team's thoughts are. I know immediately like what comes to mind for me. I think what comes to mind immediately for me are young adults. Between the ages of what, 18 to maybe 35 or something, 40 even. And it's based on experience of what I've been seeing, right? I work predominantly with college students, campus ministry, but I also am a young adult pastor at my church. And I'm noticing more and more that young adults, especially in the last couple of years, Barnard did a study speaking about young adults are looking for something more concrete, something more purposeful, like deeper community, rather than just coming to a service and worshiping and then it's like, now what? And they want to really be active, and they want their faith to be something that they can that is really active in their neighborhood, in their community, and they're looking for people to have intentional community with. And so I think that this gives them an opportunity, not to take away from them attending service. I think that makes it even that deepens that even more, because when they're able to have community in their neighborhood and able to do things, they're able to also invite people, let's say, that might come to faith in their neighborhood and invite them to churches. But I also think about, like I mentioned before, the young adults who are coming into the city for work or for education. And they might see that this is a very transient place. I don't know if I'm going to be in New York long term. I don't know if I'm going to take a job here and plant roots here. This might feel like kind of an exile, like the next 4 years of my life. But how do I not merely just try to survive being a Christian in New York City, but how do I thrive, right? What does it look to actually have community, find community in my neighborhood, and not just try to get through this and then go back home, but to actually seek the benefit of the neighborhood and the community. So those are two that's those that are coming in for school education and those that are already living here, young adults. That's one target audience that I'm thinking of, that are already used to tech and they already know how to use social media and tech, and there's a need, right?
Oh, sorry, Hope. I'd also agree with Brunel, with everything he said. I would also give it to someone who is in, I guess, categorized the same way as it. I would give it to Gen Zs. I'm a Gen Z. I say Gen Z because my whole thing behind it is giving it to someone, giving it to giving something to Gen Zs that I never had. So something that I wish I had. And that's kind of like my thought process behind everything that I do. Like, giving some sort of community or some type of aspect of something that I didn't have when I was there, if that makes sense. Like, my coming into faith was different. I felt like when I came into faith, it was more forceful. So now as a young adult, an older young adult, I'm trying to find community, if that makes sense, instead of it being given to me or it being an option when I first came. So yeah.
Wow. I think I'm going to probably offer a different perspective than Brunel and Aliyah, but I think for like strategically speaking, in terms of like an MVP rollout, I probably would actually give it first to like local churches that have roots in the community, because with the idea of like, if you build it, they will come. Because I think the first people who will be able to have the knowledge and insight of what landmarks are special or what the community needs are in the neighborhood, it would probably be the people who have been there for a while. And also just given the transient nature of students or, new people in the city, that demographic may, be harder to get to like pin down literally, the different things in their city. And so I think once it's established in terms of the map of all of the different landmarks and different prayers or requests for service, then the people who are like able to do the walks and looking for community will then come and be able to see what's established. But at least for the local churches that are already there, they can already start using it and already start contributing to it.
Yeah, I think that's great that all those points and perspectives are great. And this is your project. So, you guys get to direct, where it's going to go. But I think all of those use cases absolutely will work. One of the things, and we just have a few more minutes, so I want to make sure we talk about how people can stay in touch with you and just sort of like next steps. But the churches, I think that's a big deal because you have this sort of dichotomy between who thinks like tech is great, and I think everyone, even if they thought it was controversial, was forced into it as a church, right? With 2020, like even if you were staunchly against it and you wanted everyone to meet in person, like you didn't have a choice. So everyone had to kind of figure out how to build these, gateways to community. But then, fast forward 2 years from now, the biggest challenge or one challenge is, how do you get people who were online all this time to come back? That's still like a big challenge for my church. And then also at the same time, as Aliyah-Simone said, like we want to have these connections. And is there something that we're just saying, okay, everybody have Zoom or everybody have a concert? Is there a step before that? So I think this is going to probably be very well received by churches, as well as Gen Z and as well as young adults. And one of the things that you guys will probably want to, figure out as we're taking next steps to sort of move from idea to MVP is, what does that look like? And one of the reasons why I asked you that question is because in my mind, I immediately thought of 3 people I would give this app to. And they're all in the demographics you're talking about. One, I would give it to my pastor, who is very young at heart and hip and cool and very well known, very, very well respected in the Christian hip hop community. But it's very much we need to meet in person, right? So he's cool and hip and knows how to use tech to like get people intrigued, but he really wants people to be gathering in person. And then the other person would be the missions director at Times Square Church, who he's the one that encouraged me to start doing just like walks around the neighborhood where that church was and to see a need. And for me, the reason why that was compelling is because I don't live in Manhattan. So, I mean, I'm getting to the neighborhood and trying to dodge whatever I don't want to deal with on my way to church to be fed. And just going around that neighborhood completely changed my perspective. It really made me start thinking about service as opposed to what I can get from church. So technology has a way of doing that. And I've shared in other stories, how I actually found Times Square Church was just looking up a website. But I mean, these things are important. And then Aliyah-Simone, to your point, in trying to sort of get the things that you wish you had. And that's going to speak to your generation, right? It might even speak to people who are young at heart and aren't intimidated by technology. But we also want to be thinking about, as we build these applications, that it's, like I said during the hack, it's Jesus first and his word, his message, the relationships that come with him, and then the technology that follows. And if we do that, I think it won't be, I mean, it's always going to be hard work building a startup or MVP, but the need is going to be there. And this can just help us bring people together. So you guys think about that. With the 5 minutes that we have left, I'd like for each of you to just talk about how to stay in touch with you or to follow the project. And then anything, if you want to say in 30 seconds or less, that you want the audience, sorry, I'm like getting bad out by Nat, sorry about that. Like that you want the audience to know about the project and about your heart for missions through technology. So let's start with Hope.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm on LinkedIn, so it's the fastest way to find me. I think mostly like getting feedback on, is this something you would use, or like, how would you use this in your community, or where do you think like there would be like community who would really want and have the appetite for something like this? So I think that would be like really great to just have that initial feedback. And in terms of just hard permission, so I forgot to mention at the beginning, but this is actually not my first hackathon with Indigitous. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of implications for this, not just here, but the first time I actually went on prayer walks was on missions overseas in Southeast Asia. And that was like such a great way of getting to know the community. And so I think that there's a lot of like potential there that I'm very excited about.
And Hope,
Yeah.
how can people stay in touch with you
sorry.
real quick, like email, or just let us know what your social is?
Yeah, I think like, oh yeah, finding me on LinkedIn, Hee-Kyung Hope Han, I think would be the best way.
Great, thanks. Bro, you're up.
Yeah, so I'm thinking your prompt was how do they find us? Is there another prompt?
Nope, that's it. 30 seconds or
Okay.
less. How do we find you?
Okay, great. So quick, yeah, I just changed my name on this thing, so you can do at Brunel Bienvenue. That's Instagram handle, Facebook handle, Twitter handle. It's all at Brunel Bienvenue. LinkedIn as well, my full name, Brunel Bienvenue. And Homebrew 23 is Discord. So that's how people get in touch.
Awesome, thank you. And Aliyah-Simone.
My email is fine, aliyahsj@gmail.com, Aliyah with 1A. My socials are the.aliyah.simone, the with 2 E, so THEE.ALIYAH.SIMMONE. Those are both the best ways to get in touch with me. I need to update my LinkedIn, so I won't even go that route.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time. I'll be connecting with you guys offline just to talk about next steps and how we're going to provide support to you all. And for those of you that are watching, you've heard how you can keep in touch and also how you can follow the project. If this was useful to you, interesting to you, if you want to get involved, make sure you reach out to us. We're on Discord. We're going to get some socials up. We also on email, and we'll have a LinkedIn. So thanks again. Keep everybody up in your prayers, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Don.